Thanks everybody for joining us today. I think we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So this is going to be the second session for our proposal creation webinar. Last session, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, we walked through the instant quotes. So we're gonna kind of recap on that just a little bit so we understand the difference and remind everybody the difference between getting an instant quote, which is through our vendor IDEON, and then at the end of that process is generating or creating a proposal and the ability to customize the proposal, which is a record that gets created in our system after the fact, and then also building those custom from scratch. So a lot of customizability, a lot of automation, and a lot of creating structure and standardization. And then last but not least, we want to talk about the efficiency that we gather in analytics. So lots to talk about today. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Rachel Zeman, the founder, CEO of Benelinx. Love to do these sessions every 2 weeks. We got lots of things that we've talked through. So appreciate everybody taking the time to join us this morning. Okay, so today we're going to go through kind of that second level of finishing out that process, that complete life cycle of building, maintaining what we're going through with our new businesses and our renewal clients, where we create the proposal. Some people call it spreadsheets, which is what we provide to our clients every year, right? So this is our market recommendations. We're going to go through how we can create those proposals, and it can be a variety of different types. It's going to can include ACA. I know that market is shifting, level funded, self-funded. I'm going to show you a preview of self-funded capabilities. We can also add our ancillary in. Some of that can come from our instant quote. Some of that will be underwritten, so we'll have to manually add that for now. And part of the value proposition of having a quoting engine and creating proposals within your agency management system, Benelinx, is that we can pull in our current, right, and map it to our renewal options. So what does the client have currently? What have they had in force for the last 6 to 9 months, depending on when you start your renewal process? So the efficiency is we're warehousing everything in the same place, right? So I can pull in what's existing. I can show what I can then map it to what I'm going to present all in one place, right? Instead of having to move that information with like an external quoting tool does not have. Overall, then we're going to walk through generating the proposal. So once we build out that proposal with the proposed plans, then we can talk through how we can generate. And this is where we really get into the customization capabilities, side-by-side comparisons, right, by product, and how we can use Conga Composer, which is a third-party application for our clients that have the performance or have the quoting capabilities. That application is available. There's a lot of ways that we can use that application. In this use case, that's where we're going to pull all the information that we've built inside of the Benelinx Salesforce system out into a document, right? So whether that be an Excel, a PDF, a Word document, or a PowerPoint. And for our current proposals, it's going to come out in Excel, which is an editable document, which is really, really nice to have versus a PDF. Last but not least, most importantly, is the last part of this process, right? So this is where we sometimes lose time, we run out of time, but it is absolutely the most critical step in this entire process. Why? Because all the work we do in creating our proposals, we can push one button and mark what is sold, and it either renews our policies or creates new policies. In essence, updating my agency management system immediately for the next year with the push of a button. So we cannot forget about this process, this last step in the process. It is the most critical, and this is where we gain all the efficiency, right? And again, what's the value of doing all this inside of one system is this step, right? I can build a proposal, I can generate a quote in Excel, I can do that in a third-party system, but then when it comes to updating my agency management system, right? where I have to be able to track and manage those policies for the next year. It's tied to commissions and paying out producers, all and the transparency and the visibility of what was sold. All of it comes down to pushing a button. And I'm going to talk a lot about this step and how important and critical it is to actually make sure we understand where and how we go through the process of completing this life cycle, right? Mark what is sold, but also the timing of it. Critical factor of timing. Don't do it later, do it now. I tell this all the time in onboarding. Why would you do it later? It is not the same as putting your file folder on the side of your desk and then running to the next meeting. It's do it while you have it in the forefront of your mind. When you got that email or you just had that call or that meeting with the client and they tell you what they have decided to do for the next year, push the button now versus later. Completes that cycle, updates your system in the moment when it's fresh in your mind. So, really, really important step here that we want to make sure we spend plenty of time finishing out that life cycle. This is a refresher from last week. So, where and when do I start the process, right? And if I want to build a proposal, how do I do that? And there's a process, there's a standard way we do things, and then there's always the one-offs, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that you can get to this proposal creation part of the Benelinx system in a variety of ways, right? I can go through the RFP market request. I can go through the instant quote to get to that proposal, right? Where I can create that proposal. I will let you know that the RFP request and or even the instant quote can be managed for not only existing business, but also new business, right? So it can be managed through a renewal workflow. It can also be managed through our onboarding workflow. Go to new client, BOR them, right? So we got two scenarios already that we can apply this. We can apply it to renewals, which is mostly what we talk about, but it's important to note we can do it during new business. BOR group, are we going to run through the quote? Are we going to give them a proposal? We can also do it ad hoc. I'm as a former agency owner, I know that sometimes when the client is in jeopardy, right? They're talking to a friend, a buddy, etc. They've got other, avenues they're pursuing that they want to have you ad hoc create a market request. So you also have that option as well. So standard structurally, process-wise, we're going to be doing it most of the time during our annual renewal cycle. We also can apply that same process to onboarding new business, but we also can intercept the process if we have like I said, a client in jeopardy and we need to run that, generate that proposal kind of mid-cycle. So all of those can be accomplished in our system. Right? So just mention this. Where do we embed this in the process, right? We have it already built into the onboarding and renewal, and we can actually just manually go in and create a market request if the client is off cycle requesting that, right? Because there's going to be those situations in our world. Of course, in our world, there is standard process and then there's the special clients, right? So all of those are available for us to create that proposal. Okay. They're going to be related to our market request. That's going to be really important. That's the record we create before we actually create a proposal. Why is that such an important record to create? We want to have that record created so we can go back to that market request and mark what is sold. So we'll talk through that. Some of this is manual. Most of it's automated through some of our renewal automation and onboarding automation now for our clients that have our sales app. How many proposals can I create? So the important point of this is a proposal is a record that lives in your system. So once we get past that instant quote, which is that quoting engine, right? And we hit submit, it's going to create a record. That record now lives indefinitely in your system. If we're creating it manually, the system generates it for us. Once it's a record, unless we physically delete it, it's going to be a record we can go back to, we can reference, we can go and update later. So we can use that record creation, right? For us to be able to go in and out and build that out. And like I said, it's also going to be visible for us to historically go back in time. When did we generate the proposal last year? What was in the spreadsheet? What was the market results? What did we show them? Really good for historical documentation when we get ready for our pre-renewal meetings with our clients in the next year. What did we do last year, right? There's a lot of recap that happens in those pre-renewal meetings. So really important to know that that record exists and it lives indefinitely in your system. Okay. So first step we're going to walk through is building our proposal, right? Where do we build it? Does the system build it for me? Do I build it myself? And what can I build within that proposal? Again, it's just like building it in a spreadsheet as we're building it out, right? We're going to build out our going down the list. We're going to build out our medical. We're going to build dental, vision, life, disability, everything we're recommending to the client. We'll talk about some of the limitations of our system currently and how that's going to be changing. But we're going to walk you through that. Okay. And again, instant quoting, we have some limitations there with what products we get and what markets we get from IDEON. Here, we can add in not only those that come from instant quote, which are ACA and products and carriers that IDEON provides, but also we can add in our own if we have some underwritten dental, vision, life and disability, even some of our level funded and even self-funded. So the idea is the proposal is all encompassing. Everything we're recommending to the client, we want to present to them. And this is going to be client facing. So it's going to be important that it's clean, concise, it's branded to your agency. And that's really important because I know, again, having lived in your world, there are a few things that we can differentiate ourselves in the market, and market branding is very much one of them. We're going to add in our current renewal. I mentioned this is one of the really important value propositions for Benelinx and building in your proposals into our system, right? Is that if I go to a quoting engine, I have it over here. If I have a spreadsheet over here, meaning outside of the system, I've got to add in not only my proposed plans, what I'm recommending for potential options for them to select for the next year, but I also have to add in my current, right? I may have to cut and paste it from if it's Excel, may have room for errors, make sure those formulas are correct, right? And if it's living in the system, there's less room for error, and I can pull that all the way over from my in-force policies into my proposal. So a lot of value there, right? I've already got my policies in the system. They've been living in the system for over a year. Now I'm going to go in and I'm looking for this renewal, and I got to pull those policy details in so I can show them what have they been paying for the last year, what are the benefits that they've offered their employees, and then show that compared to maybe the renewal that the incumbent carriers provided, but also the other proposed plans relative to benefit design, pricing, budget, strategy, all those good things, right? So the human element is still really critical for deciding what to market and what to present to your client. Really important final step too is when we think about we're building all these records, right, that live inside the system. They're electronic records that we're building inside of the Benelinx Salesforce system, which is great, but for us, right, as users, but we have to get it out of the system. Our clients don't have access directly into our Benelinx system, so we have to get it out in a presentable document. And so a couple things we want to do before we actually export it out of the system through our Conga Composer button. We're going to want to make it sure it's in the right order. We want it organized in a specific way. Some clients want it least to most expensive, want some like to show their proposal or spreadsheets most expensive to least or highest benefit to least benefit, right? Which means maybe the deductible is the lowest, right? The highest benefit, low deductible. Some like to sort it by carrier first, then by the either the deductible amount and or the overall price point. So lots of ways that we can determine the sort order so that when we do generate and pull it out of the system in that Excel format document, that it's in the order, starts to be in the order that we need it to be. Obviously, there's always going to be one-offs there as well. I'm going to go through some tips and tricks as we go through this because this is still pretty heavy in the manual creation area. Building out a custom proposal, right? We get the heavy lift from what we can get from IDEON, which is great, right? If we're going to compare ACA to level funded, I can get the ACA through the instant quote. So that helps with not having to build it all necessarily manually. But right now, we're still going to have to build out those proposed plans coming in the near future, 2027 now, because we're already closer to the end of 2026, closer than we think. Fourth quarter, here we come. We're going to have the ability for us to use our RFP tracking when we get those quotes back to be able to have AI build out those proposed plans. So we're going to be eliminating that. That's coming, and that's a very high priority for Benelinx, reducing the areas of our system that are heavily manually labor intensive. This is one area, but we're building all this out and we have the infrastructure so that when we add AI, then it's already set and it's ready, right? So there's a method to our madness. But I'm going to show you some ways today that if we're building these out, that we can actually create a little bit of efficiency for you. So you're not necessarily creating every one of these from scratch. We're going to utilize the famous, cloning capabilities with Salesforce to do some of that. And we're going to talk about preparedness and readiness to create a proposal, right? Some of the things I talk about heavily in onboarding is that before we start, creating our proposals, we want to get ready, right? What does that mean? Well, part of the readiness is, are my current enforced policies complete? Do I have them in the system? Do I have the policies created? And then secondarily, do I have the policies complete? Meaning, do I have the plan design attached? Do I have the rates set up in that policy? Do I have the contribution strategy set? If you've done that a year ago, you're ready and set to go with your policies because I'm going to be pulling those in, right? Current policies that are expiring. In addition, if I'm having some custom proposed plans, new Cigna, maybe it's very custom built. I need to make sure I've got the plan designs built in the system. Okay, so some of this preparedness allows you to work through the proposal creation kind of in a flow, right? Versus disruption and kind of breaking with that process. So definitely wanting to think through. Third thing that's not on this that I can think of right now is also, like we normally do when we go through a renewal process, we're going to get the renewal from the incumbent carrier. We're going to want to go through that document from United, from Cigna, and make sure I understand this is what, the current rates are, verifying those, making sure I understand what they're proposing as a renewal option. What information are they going to need, et cetera. So preparing us for building out the proposal. If I've gotten underwritten quotes back, have I reviewed them? Do I understand what I'm going to present to the client? Again, the human element here is really, really important. We know our clients best. And so getting us to, yeah, I can pull all this in, but what is the recommendation? We could have 50 proposed options, and which 5 or 10 am I going to actually present to the client based on what I know best about this client, based on their budget, where they're headed in their markets, etc. So, obviously getting prepared for that, going through all those to understand which ones am I proposing and why, which ones I'm not. Obviously actually manually building those out, the speed of using tabbing on our computer, right? We have our 10 key, we have tabbing, those two elements, just like the wizards that you are in building Excel. We're going to use those and make sure that we're efficient with building those records inside of our system. Tabbing is a really great way to do that instead of having to cursor over each cell to fill in each one of those fields. Okay. And we have a clone proposal option. So again, we can build one at a time, or we can clone, which copies the history of one. So then I just update those records. So we're trying to create some efficiencies here for you to help you with building those out. Talked a little bit about, I think this is kind of an introductory. I don't want to spend too much time because again, we got to get to that mark quota sold. But Conga Composer, it's a whole nother application. It's not owned by Benelinx. It's not owned by Salesforce. It's their own company. They're actually, ironically, headquartered in Broomfield, Colorado, where they used to be. But it's a document generating application. So long story short, the button executes the command. I want to pull all this information out of this proposal and put it into an Excel file, and it is a mapping document generator, right? And there's queries. That's just a technical term for what does it, each line item of what we're asking it to do. We have a template, right? We've got a manual template that's an Excel file that says, go and grab this field and put it in this cell in Excel. And the benefit of a template is that we can have many different templates, we can have many different versions, and we can customize what that template says and what it looks like. So what language are we explaining and how are we explaining our recommendations to our client, right? Our spreadsheets. Do I usually put the rates at the top? Do I put it at the bottom? Do I include or do I exclude chiropractic or mental health outpatient. You get to decide. This is where that customizability really gets critical. Your clients are used to what you are using and presenting, or maybe you want to modify or update, or maybe you want various versions of what you're presenting to the client, but you want it in the standard template, the branding that comes from your agency. And this is what I tell new clients, prospects. This is Fortune 500 stuff here, right? This is you competing against the Aon, the Mercers, the Gallaghers, etc., right? Because they don't use a standard template, nor should you, right? You want it to be branded to your agency and unique so that it's clearly differentiating and you have the customizability to do that within the Benelinx system with this application. Okay. Mark quota sold. Again, lastly, we want to make sure that we talk through the end process is the final most important, right? All of the work that you do to build out your proposals, the benefit is at the end. We can get a quote from a lot of different places. We can build a proposal or a spreadsheet in a lot of different ways. The efficiency comes when we don't have to do it again. We reduce or eliminate the duplication, right? If I'm doing those actions inside my agency management system, the storing and warehousing what was sold, which is agency management 101, right? Core fundamental agency management is I need to know what clients I have and what policies have been sold. I can complete that cycle with a push of a button, okay? Which allows me what? Greater efficiency, less room for error, less duplication, less administrative time, and I can move forward with my next steps because we're not done when, right, when our client makes a final decision. We have a lot of things that happen after the fact, like we have to generate a booklet a lot of times, like we have to push that information over to our Ben admin system. We have to build that out in a Ben admin. Benelinx isn't a Ben admin system, right? We have Employee Navigator, we have Ease, we have payroll companies. So how do we get that information in those Ben admins so that they can turn it on so the employees can make their elections for the next year, right? So there's Cobra, there's updating compliance, the list goes on in your renewal workflow. So it is not the end of the road. It is kind of in the middle. And we want to get our agency management system up to date as soon as possible so we can move through those steps and we don't have to go back later to update our system when our accounting and finance department is barking at us because they need to post commissions and our policies aren't up to date. So a lot of reasons why. We want to make sure we get to this mark quota sold, get that information converted over, be done with it, move on. Everybody's happy. Information is in accurately. You can check that off your list because you don't have it on your list, right? So really, really important. The value of a lot of this isn't that it's that unique. It is that we're combining it into the same system. And last but not least, the value that I always don't spend enough time on is talking about the analytics, right? If I have it in the system and now I've got an electronic version, what value do I gain, right? The value of, and it's not even on this life cycle, is my analytics, right? My benchmarking, my historical data, my trending, my budgeting, right? So I can see my deductible shifts. I can see the trending of what products are we selling more or less? What carriers are we selling more or less? Have we lost some business in what area? What are we looking at from a self-funded level funded? Or what's shifting in the market? What do our clients want to know what we're selling? What is transitioning and happening? And the ability for us to now analyze the data is tremendous when we put this level of detail in one place. If it's over here, it's over there. It stays over there. If I build it and I maintain it and I manage it all in the same system, especially within a Benelinx Salesforce system and the reporting capabilities, very, very robust. At the end of all this, when we're in reflection, when we're looking at it for tracking, when we're looking at it for benchmarking, it's all here, right? And we don't want to forget about that because that is also a critical component of all this, right? If I have it over there, I don't get to see it. I can't get that visibility and transparency of looking at the data and the trends and the benchmarking, right, to provide to my clients to help make better decisions, to help understand what's shifting in the market, right, to get ahead and in front of the movement that's occurring. Okay. But marking quote is sold, right? As we roll through this life cycle, generating our proposals, marking what is sold, boom. I copy, create those renewal policies right here. Now I can move on, right? Because we're not done. We've got generate booklets. Boom. I can generate the booklet, push a button because then my policies are up to date. I know my plans are in there because I built them in the proposal. I know the rates are in there because I built them in the proposal. I know the contribution is in there. I built it in the proposal. I can push this to ease navigator, right? And again, plan, propose, or sorry, policy, plan, design, deductible, copay, coinsurance, RX, right? Rates, contribution, even eligibility, push, all goes over, right? Less duplication, less error, less time, right? None of this is time consuming until you aggregate it over time, right? And the efficiencies of that. I'm building out the same thing over and over again. This eliminates that process. So anyway, so as you can see, as we're rounding the bend here, intuitively, the next step in our training is going to be our benefit guide. So we're going to go through that in around mid-August, and we're going to walk through. We've got some beautiful new templates, and again, we're using Conga Composer. We're giving you a template. We're starting you out at 30,000 feet. That's the moral of the story of Benelinx, right? Don't have to start from scratch. We're starting you out with our template, and then we can modify and revise, right? And we're giving you applications and software and automation to build it and have it so it's very much specific to your agency. Really important that it's branded. So that's where we're headed. All right, let's go through a visual here. I want to make sure a couple of things I want to hit on. We're going to review some of this. We don't have time to go and actually build. I'm going to review with you and give you a visual of the process and make sure we have time to talk through that mark cortisol. So back to Bob's Bakery, my favorite client. And as I mentioned, where do I get that proposal and that process of building out proposal? Couple different places. Our automation for onboarding or renewals. That's automatic creation of these records, sending it to your account management team, notifying them, and it can be built in and part of the process, right? Now, I can build out, and I might be doing an instant quote. This is a market request. Market request object is designated by the money bags. Or I might do both, right? I might be doing an instant quote, but I also might be sending out an RFP. I can get to that proposal creation either place. Okay. So if it's an instant quote, which we talked through last week, I'm not going to focus on that today. If I'm tracking and managing, and this was in a prior webinar where I want to track, I'm sending out an RFP request. It's underwritten. I'm sending it to specific people. I'm going to track and manage that. I can automate this through the Cloud Maven, send and receive. I can see what was sent out. Lots of testing here. I can see what was returned when I receive those quotes back. This is a place where again, future state. Stick with us, Benelinx clients. We're headed to great places. So if we automate, eventually when we get those quotes back, it's going to create those proposed plans in our proposal. So coming future state. So we're headed in this direction quickly. I can build out that proposal and have it created here. Okay. Again, it's a record. So whether I go through my renewal, I go through the RFP process, I go through the instant quote process, getting to that proposal creation. I want to make sure I have a market request created because again, that mark quote is sold is this record we need to get back to. It's kind of our middle record. So again, oops, sorry, to this. So get back to that. Where did it go? Internet issues here. Let's go back through. Come on, Salesforce. Uh-oh. Oh, let's go back all the way and see if what broke. See if we can get to it this way. Okay. So whether I go through the instant quote or go through an RFP request, right? I can get to those proposals. So last but not least, so I can get to the market request here. I can create a market request manually if it's off cycle. And last but not least, these proposals are creating records in the system. And just like any other object within the Benelinx Salesforce system, I can go through my account, through my renewal workflow, through my market request. That's a lot of throughs. I can go directly to my market request. If we have data analysts on the call, we have people that are going direct that are part of the process that don't necessarily manage the workflow, but I can also go directly through my proposal. These are records in the system. I can jump right back to where I need to go once I've got that process started. So I don't have to go and through to get to where I want to be. Once that proposal record is created, I can jump right back to that proposal I was working on earlier in the day and go directly to it through our tab on our navigation bar. How that gets created and how it's managed is a whole nother conversation. That's our renewal or onboarding workflow. That is our market request. Okay. But once I have this record created, it exists in real time, in real life, and I can come back to it anytime. So I may come and go from this record in the middle of it, of building this out, and I may have to go to a meeting and come back and finish completing the process. We had a client that we've recently onboarded that's going through this process, and I think her quote was, what used to take her a couple days now takes her a couple hours. So relative to timing and processing, learning the process is one thing, but the efficiency is a multiplier. Okay, so we've got our shell of our proposal, right? And now whether I get my instant quote, right? If I'm going through the get quote, this is what gets created for me. But now I've got my proposed plans and we've got these ordered slightly differently than some of the older clients, so we can reorder them if you want. Intuitively, the process of building this really should start with your proposed plans. Reason is I have to build my proposed plans, including my renewal plans, and then I'm going to map them to my renewal, and then I can set my structure and generate. So combination of building records and using our famous buttons. Some of these are going to be going away over time. We're going to consolidate them into one. But again, lots of changes coming here soon. All right, so this is just like, again, if we think about building our proposed plans, these are going to be our columns on our spreadsheet, right? So a couple things I have to keep in mind, like I mentioned, is we're going to build out and we can build new each one of these different records. And we're going to make sure that we also are considering that we're going to also need to build out our renewal, right? Our current policies are in the system over here in the policy area, but we want to make sure that we're also building out a renewal, which is what the incumbent carrier is saying is the renewal option. It may be identical. It may be some variation of what's available, right? With their offerings. And so we want to make sure we build those out as well. Quick preview. If we want fully self-funded, I'm going to open this up to give you an idea of how this looks. We can actually build out, if some of you are aware, we have a self-funded policy record type. We can actually build out a proposal that has all the key components of the fixed costs, the self-funded, the specific, the aggregate, and getting us to our aggregated, our expected claims, and our expected costs. So we have the ability to build that out here. What value adds to building it here? We have consistency, reliability, and we can mark those as sold too. So I just want to give you a quick visual of that. More to come on self-funded. But again, we're building this out for our larger market, our shifting of our market, the different products that people are selling, and it's not the simple ACA and it's not the simple age-band or composite. So much more complex plan policy structures. If I'm building out a four-tier equivalent in this example, you can see that we've got the fully insured. It is a level funded, and I'm putting in the four-tier equivalents here. It's going to be up to you if you're putting in level funded. You're going to have to get that quote back and you're going to put the numbers in here. You can decide because you're putting the numbers in. Is it a pre-underwritten rates? Are they the final rates? It's up to you. You can go back in, you can present, pre-underwritten and then go back and rerun it, regenerate and update the rates. Once you get final underwritten, it's going to be up to you because you're manually putting that in. It is not something we can generate through our quoting simply because of limitations of our vendor, right? And underwriting requirements. But I can put them in here and you can see I've got it denoted that these are level funded. As I go down the list, I'm adding in my dental. I can see the product line. The system does the calculations for me. I go grab my plan design from my plan library. That's where I was saying that readiness. Do I have the plans in the library? If I do, I can go grab them. I'm just going to look up to that library and find that plan design. Then, specific to this client, I'm going to have their employee elections and I'm going to put in their 4-tier composite rates. Okay. So as I go down the list, same old, right? So I go down the product lines, I can build the vision, I can build my life and disability. And again, if my library, my plan library, has those plan design record types available and they're pre-built, I can go grab that flat 50 from principal and add it into my proposal, my spreadsheet. And life and disability. Okay. I'll walk you through an example of what that looks like to create and to clone and using the tabbing, but I want to give you the visibility of understanding that this goes well beyond, right? Our instant quote, where we're limitation on ACA, no longer limited. Dental vision, that's all we can get from our instant quote. We can add those in, but now we're not limited to getting in or bringing in and including life, disability, short-term, long-term, etc. What you won't see here is voluntary products, okay? So Employee Navigator 2.0, which is becoming Benelinx 2.0, we're going to be able to pull a lot of that information in from Employee Navigator, which then will allow us to update our entire system, which eventually will include this part of our system. So we can include those more complex rating structures. Voluntary rates are very complex. So more to come there once we get that. And we know long term, we're going to be adding that in here as well. But when we don't have to build them because we can pull it in, right? From Navigator, there all of a sudden, now it makes sense because we don't have to type in all that information. All right. So building out, which one should we build? Let's build a medical. So simple, we're going to go in, we're going to go to build new. We're going to pick a plan from our plan library. I can start typing. If I know the plan name, this is the hardest part. You got to go in and do a search. You're going to want to make sure you pick the right plan. Let's grab a bronze, maybe. Let's see. So I start typing. Really need to understand your plan library so that we can make the right selection here. We're going to be changing this as well. We're going to have a whole nother UI front end, which is your front end experience. And we're going to remove the ability just to build it into a field. And we're going to have a whole page where you can sort and filter and see all kinds of good stuff. Because this is definitely a little bit more difficult, but you got to master what's in your plan library. Moral of the story. We're going to select our tier rating. Is it a renewal plan or not? Once I've got my plan created, then I'm going to go back into my proposed plan and you can see the system is pulling in my elections already for me. And now I just go through and I'm going to again type in, we're going to make this one expensive and tabbing. See, I hit tab on my computer and now I can make this much faster. Well, what's realistic here? Not sure. Okay. So tabbing and going through that process is going to make things a lot faster. I've just created a proposed plan. It's that simple. Other tip and trick is using the clone proposed plan option. Let's say I have to build 3 of these and I've got everything the same except for my plan design and my rates. I can go to this clone. I'm going to pull up my proposal name if my internet cooperates with me. And it's going to create a copy of the proposed plan behind me. Okay. It's pretty simple. Then I just go in and adjust it, right? I don't have to build it from scratch. So, again, the process of trying to eliminate or reduce the number of steps. Let's try one more time. It's not my day. Hello, Starlink. Here we come. Moving away from our current provider. Gonna probably have to move into Starlink. Yep, can't go there. So, fortunately, I can't show that to you guys today. But that's the idea, is where do I find that? Again, to clone is I go into an existing proposed plan and go to the clone. There we go. Get it to kind of pull in. I'm going to pull in my proposal, find my proposal, and then I confirm, and now it's creating a copy. Much faster, especially with life and disability. Well, now I just go in and I'm going to change my choice plan, pick up a different one. Oops, I can't spell either today. I'll grab just a different plan and now I can just update my numbers. Tab is much easier, right? So save. So you can see the process, right? Rinse and repeat. Again, building out my proposal. As I build it, you can see that it's visible and the system does the totals for me. So you don't have to worry about doing the calculations. That applies also down here to the life and disability products. Current renewal. This is where I'm going to use my button for now. I'm going to go into my current renewal and I'm going to do my mappings. If I have a plan that's already mapped, what are the requirements here? My current policy has to be an in-force policy on this client. So Bob's Bakery has 3 medical policies right now in force, not pending and not pending termed and not termed. So make sure of that. And then I'm also only going to pull in the proposed plans that have that renewal checkbox. I'd do the same for dental and vision. Again, what are the limitations? I have to have my policies set, the policies that are about to expire. My proposed plans have to have that checkbox. If I don't check that box, I can go into this record and I can change it. I can check this box and uncheck it. That's what's going to determine what's in my button over here for new plans, right? If I don't see it, it's because none of my proposed plans have the checkbox. And it's just the plans that the incumbent carrier has said, here are your renewal options. Do we build that out? Set proposal structure. Again, we're running out of time. So again, I can set the proposal structure by product. Oops, I select, I go next, and now I can set my defaults. Do I want it in an order? And I can change it by client. If I want it by carrier, then I want it by total premium, ascending, descending. I can decide, and now you can see visually what it's going to do, and I can even set the default if it's the same every time. And then if I have a one-off, I can go in and I can adjust it, hit next, and save. Generating my proposal once it's built, right? I'm ready. And again, this is where we get Conga. Conga is an application, and you can see I've got our standard templates, our member level that we talked about last session, single, age band, and composite. And I just ignore all the buttons here. Our templates are very complex. The CIS industry is complex. These aren't simple, one-page quotes for signature. I merge and download, and I'm going to show you the end product. This is our template. What is the value here? I can create my own branded for my agency. Don't like the color, don't like the picture, great. Give us yours, we update it. You can do a market refresh. You can have different versions for different size clients. You can have different levels of complexity, etc. Right? It's a template on the back end. And now we can also have it customized. I can pull in my agent, right? My broker off my account. I can insert logos. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but I can see the consistency across every single page has the same information. I get to decide, what do I present to my client? Do I include lab and x-ray? Do I not? Do I have my tiers split out? Do I break them apart? This is a summary. This is our template. Cool things where I can actually go in and create a hyperlink. Look at that. Okay. Less paper, no paper, more automation. Again, less information needs to be in my proposal if I have a link where they can actually click on the plan design details and get all the details they want. So again, design structure, we've got our breakdown of our rates and our plans and a comparison. Everybody has a proposal that's different. Every single agency's like, yeah, but this is similar, but this is how we do this. When you can customize, you can make it anything you want, and you can update it and revise over time. If I go through my products, we can go side by side. And again, that plan design is where it pulls in a lot of that detail. And now we're going to show the comparison of the rates compared to across all of our products. Dental, vision. These are the products that we don't get from IDEON that have to be underwritten, but you can see our beautiful side by side. This is all editable. This is not a PDF. This is really important, right? Because I can undo and I can go back to and I can modify and I can expand and I can contract and I can then PDF it. So I have the editing capability. So I've got branding, I've got consistency, I've got customizability. I can have editing capabilities. This client wants it this way. That client wants it that way. I've got too many on a page, right? Formatting is a nightmare. It always is. Doesn't matter how much automation you have. So depending on, you've got the ability to be final touch, sign up, final person. I have such OCD type A personality, right? So I have to have it my way, the highway. So I get it. And I want it to look and feel like my agency. So this is giving you that flexibility of doing that. I can generate it, I can regenerate it, I can regenerate it as many times as I need. Okay. I can go back to my proposal. I go in, I generate the proposal, don't like it, got to change something, got to update something. I've got a files. Every single time I generate it creates a copy. It does not create the final version because I've got it out of the system now. But if I want to go back to a earlier version, I want to see what I've generated and I can regenerate this over and over again. So value is building my proposed plans. I can attach it to my current. I'm going in to my current policies. Here, I go all the way back to Bob's Bakery. What's in force right now? In force policies. That's where it's pulling. My proposal is pulling only these three medical plans because they're in force and they have all the information. They have that plan design attached, right? That's why I'm pulling into my current and renewal right here. I don't have to rebuild that. It's already over there. It's in my policies. I'm just grabbing it and pulling it in here. So now I can do my side by side current renewal. Everybody wants to know what I'm paying now versus what am I going to pay tomorrow. My renewal. Renewal meaning what the incumbent carrier is offering. If you want to stay with us and you want a similar plan, this is what the rates are. This is what's changed. Then I'm going to go out to the market. I can go out to the market and I can go out with the same product or different product line, with the same market or different product market, right? I can go in and add my level funded with my fully insured. I can actually build out a full self-funded product if I would like. My dental, my vision, my life and disability. Those plan designs live in my library, right? It has to be built. Again, the changes are coming with that. So we're going to make that part of your system a lot easier to use and manage and update and maintain. But for now, it's manual, but not long. So stick with us. Big areas of manual entry, building out these proposals. We get it. We're moving through building AI to help with that. Plan designs, huge manual labor. We're going to solve that, right? Not yet, but soon. We've already got some of it in there, but we're going to make this a lot easier. Some of that's going to come with Employee Navigator 2.0. Pull all that in. Great. Don't have to build it. Don't want you to build it anymore. We're also going to make us that efficient so you can upload a document. It'll create those plans for you as you're building it, right? So you don't have to punch them in anymore. But the infrastructure is here. That's important, right? You got to have the infrastructure before you introduce AI. Trust me. So the infrastructure is here, the structure of everything we're talking about. And now we can introduce AI and it knows where to go. It goes, oh, build that proposed plan. Boom, here it is. Oh, build that plan. Boom, there it is, right? So the infrastructure is set and we're ripe for now that next phase that everybody's running into, which agree, and so are we, which is AI. But we have to have the structure set first so it knows where to go, right? So more to come there. Last but not least, today's efficiency. All the work I did, all the work your people do. Build, 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 right? Got a map, generate the proposal. Have to have those plans built in here, right? But we have to have those plans built somewhere, right? So if I have to build the plan once, I don't have to build it again. I don't have to build it in my booklet. I don't have to build it into Employee Navigator, right? So build it once if you have to. Go grab it from the library if you can. But when you've done and completed this process, this is where I talk about timing. As soon as the client makes the decision, don't wait till later. Why? Because why? You're in the system. You're using the system every day. You're using it morning, noon, and night. Hopefully not all night. Client makes a decision. Email pops in, and or you get off a call, you get back from a meeting. Go to that market request. This is the critical record. Whether it be the RFP or the instant quote does not matter. And here's your button, mark quote is sold. This is where the significant efficiency takes place. If I had multiple proposals, I'd select that. If I set my contribution strategy, here is where I'm going to tell the system all the products I presented. Is it a new? Is it renewed? Maybe it's a replacement. Oh, yeah, it's replacing. I'm going to renew this just like our new product, just like I would if I was in my policy records renewing them with the renew clone policy button. And you can see I've got all my products, all for efficiencies. I'm just going to go and grab. Okay. All right. So I hit save. Guess what? All the work is done. I go back to Bob's Bakery. I go back to my policies. There it is. Now, they're in pending. Why? Because 9-1 hasn't started yet in real time. All my enforced policies are still here. These are the policies that have been in the system for a year. I renewed these policies. They're going to be renewed just like if I renewed them manually. It's connecting all the dots for my accounting team. Nobody's going to yell at me. All my new policies are going to now renew correctly. So when 9-1 hits, all these enforced policies have been renewed correctly. And if they're not new products, they're going to go down here. They're going to skip over pending and go down to term. Dumb. I don't have done, not dumb, done. I don't have to do it manually. I don't have to clean it up. Enforced policies that I just built from my proposal are now going to move to what? From pending to enforce, automated 9-1. Our system generates that. And I've got not only everything that I would normally have to go in and update. I've got the policy. I've got the effective date. I've carrier plan design because I did the work and I had it built already, or I grabbed it from my library. I don't have to do it again. I've got my rates. If I set my contribution strategy, it would be set here. All that got carried over. System updated, instantaneously done. Don't have to go back to it later, right? Most importantly, doing it timely. Do it while it's in the forefront of your mind, right? System is now updated when you're the owner or your manager pulls the audits to see if you've got your new policies and your policies renewed, and then finance goes in to start posting commissions against it and paying out John, Sally, or Tom as a producer. It's all set. You're done. You're ahead of schedule. Really, really important. That's a huge part of our automation right now, and so much more is coming. We understand where there's a lot of manual entry, where we're going to remove a lot of that through the next 12 months with some of our new tools coming out. But for now, there's still a lot of efficiency. The other thing to remember is where we're headed. And again, if you're a Benelinx client, where we're headed, don't remove things that you're going to want to bring back later. The level of detail may feel like a really significant burden to your employees. That level of detail meaning not just the policy, but that plan design, right? But thinking about the fact that in the near future, you're not going to have to build this. Is it nice to have? Sure it is. The deterrent was what? Too much manual entry. We're eliminating that variable in the future in multiple ways. One, first and foremost, Employee Navigator 2.0 is going to be able to pull that information back. This level of detail will be able to be retrieved from Navigator. 99.9% of you are using Navigator because it is the Ben admin system in our market. Okay. We're going to be able to pull that in. No more manual entry. Second thing is we're introducing AI that's going to be building these for you. Third thing is we already have and still have employee IDEON, okay, for some of that library build. Fourth option is to load them in. But the AI is going to take care of a lot of this. We want the level of detail in. So don't remove things from your system as we're heading into an accelerated rate of changes within Benelinx. Okay, so be aware of that. And it's important to note that level of detail is so powerful, but the big deterrent, which is the manual processing. But today we can still create efficiency, significant efficiency, I would argue, with when we build that proposal, marking what is sold, and it goes back into our policy records to have that information instantaneously updated. If I want to ever go back to those records in the past, in the future, I'm always going to have a history. Remember, I talked about historically having that information. I have my market request. It closed for me. I can go back to my proposal next year when I'm quoting this for 9/1/2027. I can go back and historically see what did we present? What did the client decide? Why did we present this? What were the rates a year ago, etc. And last but not least, analytics. All this work, all the things that we're doing in a centralized place. No other system has the ability to do all these things in one place. What we can't do in our system, we're connecting to the outside world. Those are integrations, big integrations, right? We have Ideon was a big partner, huge market. That market's shrinking, still adds value. Small group, make it efficient, right? Easy peasy, get it done, right? Here's what options you have if you have under 5 employees. Still is the market option. There aren't any other options at this point, right? So that's heavy lift, easy automation there. Integration, though, also we have the Employee Navigator. We currently have Employee Navigator, which we can push information to them. 2.0 is coming. We're going to retrieve that level of data in the system. Huge amount of efficiency coming with that. Again, sharing data. Less manual entry, more efficiency, less room for error. Third is AI coming from a variety. We're having a warehouse where we're going to be able to create efficiency around record creation, plan design record creation, proposed plan quote record creation, commission statement record creation. Those are the three areas that are heavy manual entry that we're eliminating in the next 12 months. So this is where we're headed. This is where we are today. Here are the efficiencies of this process and the efficiencies of where we're moving. Last but not least, analytics, right? If I track it, I can report on it. And again, we're limitless essentially in our reporting capabilities. Other systems have very structured and limited reporting capabilities. I have to get it out of the system to manipulate and manage my data. Okay. Embedded in, we have unlimited reporting capabilities as well as dashboards. I can now start to think about all the information that I'm tracking. What value does it serve me as an owner, a manager? Oh, shoot, my report's not up to date. And we start thinking about trends. What's shifting? What can I see is shifting in my marketplace? Yeah, it's still not there. What changes do I see happening in my marketplace, right? I can go down to, let me pivot back to my plan design structure. I can see my policies. What products are we selling? Second level, not only what products am I selling, but what plan design structures are we selling? Wouldn't it be great to create my own benchmarking that shows my deductible, my out of pocket, my RX shifting, underneath my stop loss? What's our stop loss? How many clients did we have lasered? This is high level. This is larger market. If I track it, I can report on it. What are my renewal increases? Where are we trending with our renewal increases? What's shifting? Are we seeing a lot of replacement products? How do we know and how do we report on that? Right here. How do I report on my renewal increases? If I go back to my workflow, I can track and manage my renewal increases. Now I can report on it. Okay. All of this information, if we build it, they will come. Right? If we track it, if we have records in our system, we can now report on it, analyze it. This helps us what? Make better decisions, prepare for the trend changes, present to our clients in a faster, quicker, easier, better, right? Create our own benchmarking and compare our benchmarking to our external benchmarking systems, right? It's great to be able to get the Kaiser benchmarking for all of Colorado. But my clients always wanted to know what's going on in Boulder. What's going on with your clients? You sell a lot of software companies. What's going on with them? I want to know what's competitive in Boulder. That's great. You're going to show me Colorado, but I want to know what's going on in Boulder. So we can start analyzing the data and a tremendous amount, exponentially, the amount of data that we're going to capture in the next 12 months is going to exponentially grow. Why? Because we don't have to type it in anymore. So when we think about long term, it's not just about process, which process efficiency is so important. But when we think about the amount of volume of data that we're going to be able to pull into Navigator, we're going to be able to create through AI, the exponential number, the volume of the data that we're going to have in our system is going to go up 10x. What are we going to do with it now? What value does it have? Exponentially grows in value. I can get really down to the minutia of understanding what I'm looking at. What are the trends? What am I seeing? How do I project? How do I budget? How do I prepare my clients? How do I get more business? How do I keep the business I have? How do I take over business? Right? This is the game changer. It's efficiency. I can do more with the same people. Plus, it's also the decision making and the reportability and the analytics to present to make you a key differentiator as an agency in your market. That's a wrap. All right. But it's really powerful and it's really important to understand how things are changing, what our processes are, and how we're exponentially going to be growing with that information and start thinking at that end, that final step, which is the most important probably, analytics. What does this data do to help me make the decisions I need to be making? Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Hopefully this was comprehensive enough. We'll have it posted. We'll send out the invite for the next session, couple weeks for the benefit booklets. All right. Have a great day.